All right, this is regarding the N word and Bill Maher and Ice Cube too. Everybody's wrong. You say you say first of all you call me white. Don't call me white because I'm not white. You know, little rap guy is white. My peoples are black, and and intercultural black and white agencies together did slavery, and they used this as with every other thing as a weapon for fact treatment nature. So it's important to understand the organized crime breaching method against fact treatment natures. I'm not saying it's not good to hurt people. It's not good to use the word. But if you're going to talk about the organized crime, then you can't say there's a reason this free speech is a problem. And the problem with colonization and now, colonization's breaching methods entrenched even after our founders, who still didn't have free speech even after the Constitutional Convention. This is attached to what organized crime method. They didn't have free speech. In other words, they're telling long-term breaching lies as fact treatment natures made to be one way. Because even though they won the Revolutionary War, which is not a revolution, they still didn't win the logistical ability to even explain their extortion. CT is cherry tree. Alpha, Jesus says, I am the Alpha and I am the Omega. This is about cipher, about related to an organized crime that took over our fact treatment nature and employed it to identities of value, all alternative to a value nature systems tactically engineered and progressed, invested ulterior from the only overall system. And not only that, but first, after areas were only let realize stayed to roles with a archetypal criminal enterprise. I am not a lawyer. And we're going to see how criminal enterprises cause criminal insidiousness nature and how progressively. And we're going to see how that is related to. We have to teach the kids. You want to look out for the kids. He said it hurts like a knife. I understand what Ice Cube's saying. But what hurts like a knife is making a fake team. Not being able to, especially for Africa. How many nations are there? How many nations are there? They still haven't explained their nation's roles with slavery. Before our founders were born, they entrenched this in Connecticut. This was before our founders were born. This is what George Washington was still counter-extorted by. Had to come right before Wethersfield, Hartford, right before the last battle of the Revolutionary War. This controlled this had laws, not just with slavery. In other words, everyone was a slave by these laws, which was, in other words, say, oh, some people got hurt worse. Okay, that's true. And that's true today because of the logistics. Because we're not facing that. We're blaming it on the wrong people. We're not blaming it on the branches kept. By what? By a breaching organized crime, an international organized crime. Before interstate. So, of course, it's interstate. Nations were trained by ill campuses already controlled by area criminal persuasions before our founders were born. And then criminally international scientists. And then roles with that and all juxtaposed. And by what only let realized standing misprision mistreatment natures, lie progression cover-up natures, needed to hide fact treatment natures, needing to hide lies, delusions, premises, criminal persuasions, and insidiousness nature, which proper treatments of the truth reveal what people were defending before as fact treatments ill, including only people that are ever left to speak on this topic of the N-word, white people and black people. No one is letting the organized crime that was white and black agencies forced on everyone, forcing the home structures you can't meet to talk about. Even if you read laws, even against slave, no matter what color you are, whatever they against, if you even if met to discuss, found out discussing about building infrastructure outside of a criminally internation monitored police conversation, because they were doing a long-term role. They what divided Africa, what divided Asia, and what divided America was this color game. Was the phenomenon of dark-skinned people agencies and of Asian agencies, probably of Native American agencies too, because they took a minority from each nation and made internation science the enemy of nations. But nations were already entertained with roles with it before this. So then they're discussing with each other's roles, fake sides, in other words. So if you're not attaching the organized crime, an organized crime conversation and criminal insidiousness and the tactics using it to the conversation, and you're a top-down voice, then you're doing exactly what they wanted for it. That's what they need. That's what, no, in other words, that's what hurts. That's what hurts. Making people feel like they have a fake side. Making that, then you're teaching fact treatment. That's no school. You're telling the kids, this is how you fight. This is how you counter. You counter white. That's wrong. They have the time and the nature that you're training kids is being exploited too in relationship to an original and stayed ulterior database relationship is very serious. That's true. But color is not who's right and wrong. So it's wrong to put some base grammar school logic with emotions and passions out of sequence, needing to hide lies, delusions, and premise, criminal persuasions as fact treatment natures, with those ones only ever discussed. Fake sides, fake misprision sides, all with lie progressions in relationship, defending fact treatments that they need to justify by saying hate, making convictions that justify this with the law. That's why we have conviction stream. We have a law. Even the law is too hard, and the alternatives, when people even shouldn't get arrested half the time, the alternatives are also involved with organized crime rackets. They recorded themselves in this originally this day. So we have branches that are trained that it's all right to be a criminal enterprise because their education is breached. Everyone lost to this. That's why they glorify states of our founders and their language needing to tell lies with theater as criminal insidious nature. Every time they bring up the KKK, that's for this. That's a role for this. There's nothing right about that. What's worse though, and what's the same thing though, it's just a fake side. You say, how could that be a fake side? Because of the fact treatment. In other words, we have a nature of organized crime to counter and to understand. And to understand that, you have to understand the nature of the criminal insidiousness. You have to understand the nature of the lie, the nature of the fake sides. This is against correlation, which is internation sciences did this. In other words, black agencies and white agencies are our enemy as a nation. So we can't afford to play these games. We have to, and should be the humor is only trained stupid. And then they're defending that. And then defending that needs to fight people who are not using emotions and passions out of sequence. In other words, when someone tries to make a proper fact treatment, they're not using real premises, and that's the only thing that's ever been shown to use. So their argument styles about who's fighting, who's smarter, and things like that, and it's very ignorant. We have original state glorification of breach titles. You do that, you know, stay like undercover, whatever. I don't know if it was on or just overtly gangland. With also like they bring a white guy, and a part of these narratives with Bellevue Square in Hartford, for example, right between New York and Boston. This is where our nation was founded. CT is Cherry Tree. So if anyone's ever ready to have a conversation like a man or a woman and not play emotions forced, you know, that's all right to have an opinion. See what that does too, even if the person's wrong and you attack them just for it, you can't deal with the levels here. In other words, people just all kinds of other organized crimes. They have people that are strangers that we only know each other because people walk up to them and you have to say you know the person, but you don't know the person. There's an organized crime method that divides and conquers us from it and invest this with areas. Knowing fact treatment natures of all stages, all ages of fact treatment nature distinctly and together. So, neutral identity. God's God, energy rises. This is a word that comes with the English language. Every word of the English language was revealed. This spells a sentence that talks about the nature of that word. And this is a word that we all are as a correlation nature. Two natures of G. This is no joke. This is no joke. When Jesus says, I am the Alpha and I am the Omega, this is about a value-nature relationship where value is diffusing through itself. Our identity, while it is with us, is diffusing through itself as a quality of diffusion. And see, this is one of many things that were set up to stay opinion nature's roles, sabotaging diffusion, sabotaging proper fact treatment nature to all areas. And people who understood ancient revelations criminally re-engineered them to criminally re-engineer human fact treatment natures to roles needing to cover lies, delusions, criminal persuasions, hiding premises, as fact treatment styles only let realized to all areas of all modern nations. We lost to this. So this isn't a team game. The species was revealed as a body for correlation. Correlation of what? Of a quality of diffusion that's positive or negative, which is progressively positive value to itself, space nature's identity here, or we lose it. Lethal Hadith, force space nature's transfer. So we're going to see each of the sciences is sabotaged. Each of the sciences is playing roles with a fact treatment sabotage method. This is why evolution is a term that is an identity or value. Evolution is the cause of positive relationship to itself. And the only overall value nature system demonstrates positive value nature progressions that are the cause of evolution being its identity, being the identity of evolution causes it, because positive stays inherently, actively, and progressively positive to itself. Allah's name was used to teach this, revealed to teach this, with science, by pantheism, the science of the one positive identity of space that has one body and demonstration to us. Just like all parts of our body, each identity of every cell, of every organ, its identity is greater than itself in sharing with the sequence nature, because that is its identity, the sequence nature. We have a temporary identity because positives in diffusion through itself. and this is what English is revealed to teach. And with the alif, with Arabic language coming right to left, and with the English language coming left to right, and with Latin coming overall up as a quality of diffusion. In other words, we'll examine how each of the sciences were obfuscated. They had the messenger of religion had to take multi-front counters, counter-insidiousness fronts through time, knowing that it was too late. The nations were already only going to be capable of defending pseudo-identities. You know, they made those crazy laws up and used the phenomenon of color difference to perpetually make fake sides defend it. Because you defend that, now you're defending a course ulterior from the one already revealed to perfection. So you're just gonna have nature itself is gonna keep demonstrating negative value nature progressions until we correct what was criminally denatured, which was revealed naturally before criminal persuasions as the only overall value nature system. The only overall value nature system has no criminal persuasions. So we'll win with everything. This is not how we counter. This is not how we counter. This is what holds the logistics. This is what holds our streets, our means, the force to divide it. Fake free competition, which is not competition, breaching role in nature. These are not our means. We'll see this. Hartford, Connecticut, especially. We're going to see the pike before the heart of Hartford, before its chest, bleeding. And how? We're going to see the little cafe thing with the we'll get to that. We'll get to that. With the agencies recorded themselves too through time rolls with this. There's a breaching method. So it's important that we don't, we have the ability to force free speech, force ratiocination, which this is not. Those are her conviction agents. We have to understand the organized crime that use these things. Fake sides, fake care against that too. As in the same thing with the North. They went like this. It came right into the trap that our founders want us to explain. They didn't have free speech. We have it recorded. Why is it still glorified? They didn't have free speech even after the Constitutional Convention. Why is that garbage glorified? Why is the garbage because they don't know how to explain the organized crime that was against the Native Americans before our founders were even born, already had them taken from their education. They're already defending lies, delusions, like ill fact treatment natures, pretending what is proper scientific fact treatment. In other words, if you put the sciences together and you put common sense priorities, what's most logical is that the Native Americans were here. Their history, their education was tactically stolen, not remembered. The same thing they're doing with our founders, right in our face, and with it recorded. James Madison was the first justice to this country. We have ill. Only the whole industry. See, with slavery, the whole industry of lawyers and of branches weren't letting free speech, and to date they're not letting it because they're defending fake passions out of sequence. They don't really care like that whether hurt someone. You can't beat something like that hurting it out of individuals. You have to hurt it out of the state's criminal intimidation persuasions. And rolls by that, which was long term. This is a breaching method. That was making our founders still extorted have to tell the same lies, had to tell lies then that they needed for long term for this. They want, in need not only to hurt with these words, but to have right there to pretending care, which is a method of just keeping perpetual. People can't make reports, demonstrate in our faces criminal standards, right on. No one goes after that. They want to go after who they go after. Bill Meyer, they make a little thing, nail him. You know what I'm saying? Keep the whole nature of the industry. At the same time, they're using Facebook. They're using for evidence schemes, for rackets attached to cover up child abuses. You can't even give it. You can't even speak because everyone's a hurt conviction nature, making fabrications in the background tied to police that were only realized to roles with this for campuses and criminal justice that's ill with various natures of campuses at once and undercover using that and seeing that. So that's a nature that's defending that where there's nowhere to even counter it because you can't count. We have to stay. They have the right not to tell us about stuff. But see, that stuff is being used for breaching that, for criminal influences. But they're not letting that told. And the reason they're doing that, the way they're getting away with it, is per a method that has people from each town then come into the criminal justice system. And as the natures needing to cover up and needed to use, facilitated for them roles with the investigations predatory and with fact treatments that they can't go back and then be honest about. And then the investigations are, they're questioned on that and they have to deal with it because they're official people, they have to do that. So they get invested, needing to cover lies they did from the past, but still active with roles where everyone's only realized standing there in relationship to negative value nature progression with everything, especially with our schools and with our areas, and it being blamed on other and worse. So it's really bad. No one could even have a proper conversation, and we have fake sides with everything. We have little grammar school hurt conviction natures. It's no joke.